So here we go with Dr. Eric Dieter. So Dr. Eric Dieter is an executive director at the Longhorn Center for Academic Equity, LCAE, at the University of Texas at Austin. He directs the College to Career Initiatives and Gateway Scholars and co-directs McNair Scholars. He is part of the LCAE's assessment team and the Division of Diversity and Community Engagement Pre-K to PhD Educational Pathways Committee. Previously, he was executive director of the dual enrollment initiatives in the Longhorn Center for School Partnerships. He also teaches at the Department of Rhetoric and Writing. He received a PhD in rhetoric in 2013 from UT. He is a first generation college student supporting current first generation students and has lived in Austin since 2001. So,
Thank you. That was great. I appreciate that. Yeah. And that picture is a little bit of a lie, since because of COVID, I haven't worn a tie in 2 years, which if there's a silver lining, I guess maybe that's one of them. There's no silver linings to this. Anyway, thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. That's a great introduction. I really much appreciate it. I appreciate the invitation, and I'm thrilled to get a chance to connect with all of you before you show up on campus next year. I'd like to keep this an open conversation, so you certainly won't hurt my feelings if you want to interrupt me by either putting questions in the chat or just unmuting yourself and just saying, hey, I've got a question. And maybe my colleagues here, if I let a question linger too long in the chat room or something like that, you can pop in and let me know so that they don't go unanswered. But at the end of the day, I really just want you to feel that you have yet another connection on campus, so that when you show up, which hopefully we will be showing up in person next fall, but whether or not we're in person, you know that you have somebody else who's an ally on campus. So let me just start off by putting my email address in the chat, and feel free to copy it down, and feel free to get a hold of me if you have any questions, either UT specific questions or college transition in general questions. The
Dr.
reason I'm
Dieter.
here tonight is to talk about the college to career transition. So I know this seems early to think about this, because right now you're going through what is for most of us maybe the biggest transition of our life, right? We're wrapping up 12 years of education, and then we're moving into college from our secondary education, and that's a huge transition, huge change, tremendous accomplishment. So first and foremost, take some time to pause and think about that accomplishment, and be proud of what you've accomplished, and recognize that it's significant. It's significant, and you're all doing everything you need to do exactly the way you need to do it to make that transition as smooth and effective and fun as possible. So I wanted to have said that, because I'm going to spend the next 15-20 minutes talking to you, even though you haven't set foot on college campus as a college student once, thinking about, well, what am I going to do once I graduate in 4 years, right? And everybody's, let me just say this off, that everybody's kind of timeline for making these decisions is different, right? So we have early bloomers, we have late bloomers. Whenever you bloom is exactly the right time to bloom, right? My purpose to be here tonight, and really kind of my professional responsibilities, is that whenever students are ready to start making those decisions, that there's sort of a deep and vast network of resources to help them make that decision as efficiently and effectively as possible, right? So we don't think it's too early to start thinking about what comes after college before you go into college, but we certainly appreciate that being in college, that act will change you in ways that you may not have yet anticipated. Once you encounter new individuals, new ideas, right? Those things may change you in ways that you haven't yet anticipated. And so your path, even though you may think you have a path, that path may, branch. It certainly did for me. I'm not doing the work that I thought I would be doing, right, when I was a first generation undergraduate, right? I'm not doing the work I was doing when I was a first generation graduate student. So life has a way of being life, and you all know that. But despite that fact, there are things you can do to kind of control it, right? You can have plans in place, or you can at least investigate various plans that you could put in place in order to make decisions, right? So I guess what I'm saying is, right now you're going through this significant transition. Congratulations. We're very proud of you. And then in 4 short years, you're going to be going through another significant transition, right? And that it's not too early to think about what that transition looks like. For most of us, that means going into some sort of profession, right? What professional life looks like may be changing, right? Certainly the idea that we're going to sort of get one job and stick with it as an entire career is less common than it used to be, but it's not uncommon. So I guess my point is, I think you can start asking yourself general questions about what makes me content, what makes me comfortable, what makes me happy. And some of those are practical questions about income level. Some of those are practical / ideological questions about how do I want to engage the world? Like, right, what is the way I want to give back to a community? What is the way I want to make my mark in the world, right? As somebody who's a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer, a poet, a teacher, right, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then some of those are purely ideological questions, right? And they have to do with, right, how many hours do I want to work? What does that work-life balance look like for me, right? What other things do I want to fill my time with? Family, community commitments, public service, right? Running for public office. So the point is, there are all these decisions that you're making, and I don't think it's too early to start looking at what some of those decisions might feel most comfortable for you right now. So hopefully that makes sense. If not, you can just say, hey, that doesn't make sense. But right, my point is, yeah, start investigating what comes next. Start thinking about, right? And I'm sure you all have ambitious goals. And so part of what we do in the Longhorn Center for Academic Equity, and part of what happens across campus, right? It's not just in our center, there's a pretty deep bench of support across campus, is to help students kind of ask those questions and answer those questions. And again, our goal is not to push any particular answer, but to help you figure out what the best answer is for you as effectively and efficiently as possible, right? So that's our goal. We're an effective and efficient machine for helping students, right? We're not pushing any particular agenda. So I think that's important to know. I think it's probably important to know, if you haven't already figured it out because of all these terrific people around you supporting you in the Youth Engagement Center, there's kind of a myth about college that once you go to college, you're on your own. Right. And I think it stems from the fact that you transition from being what most people would consider to be a child to what most people would consider to be an adult. Right. And so things like people don't necessarily wake you up in the morning. People don't do your laundry for you. People don't cook all your food for you. Maybe they're not doing that for you already. And so you're kind of the head of the curve. But for a lot of college students, right, the conventional wisdom, right, or the stereotype we have of college students is that they have to learn to do kind of all these things. Right. And so that's true. You do have to kind of learn the habits of being somebody who functions kind of autonomously, right? A free functioning adult in the world. And so if that's what people mean by you're on your own when you get to college, there's maybe a twinge of truth to it. But if what they mean is like, there's nobody there to help you, you have to make decisions, and then whatever that decision makes, you have to live with the consequences, that is a myth. Right. And maybe it used to be true historically. And I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, but historically, colleges haven't been great at helping students, right, kind of maximize their success. Right. It was a lot of when you got to college, it was like, great, you're in, and you're kind of like either you sink or swim. Those days are over. Those days are really over. Universities are doing a much better job, a much more conscientious and conscious job of making sure that students maximize their time in college. And that's both academically and professionally, but also personally. Okay. So it's a myth that you're on your own. If by on your own means there's nobody there to help you professionally, academically, personally. There are all kinds of supports, right? This is the difference. What you may be used to now is a lot of people checking in on you. Are you doing okay? How can we be more helpful? Right? There is admittedly probably less of that. It's not entirely gone when you go to college, but there's probably less of it. So you have to develop a skill, and that skill is not suffering in silence. Right? So one of the things you have to do is learn to ask for help. Right? And once you ask for help, there again is this sort of ridiculously deep bench of support at UT and lots of other colleges now, right? Most other colleges now, to help give you that kind of support you need. And again, it falls in kind of three big pools: academic, personal, and professional support, right? So one of the skills you have to learn, and you can start practicing this now, is the skill of asking for help, not suffering in silence. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody, right? And for some of us, right, I'm not particularly good at asking for help, right? There's a certain vulnerability that comes with it. I've had to get better at it over my lifetime. Um, but you practice it, and just like anything else, like throwing a softball or playing the piano, the more you do it, the better you get at it, right? And that if you can ask for help, if you can figure out where the help is at on campus once you get there, then you'll find your time being much more effective and efficient, right? Because again, this deep bench of support exists. Your job is to ask for it, and then our job is to provide it. Okay. So for instance, let me put a URL in here for you. And then I promise we'll start talking about professional development more specifically, but just in general, a couple of years ago, Texas created what's called the One Stop. Maybe you've already heard about this, but essentially, because UT, like every other university, is trying to be more and more helpful, right? We want students to come in and not just feel like they can be successful or that they were lucky to get admitted, but now that they deserve to be there, they're valued, it's safe for them to be there, and they can ultimately make that experience the way that they need it to be for them. So one of the things they did is they put together this website and this location on campus where students can go to get help with anything. It used to be if you wanted to have financial help and registrar help and scheduling your classes, those were kind of all different offices across campus, which is, as you heard, 40 acres, but it's really more like 450 acres. So they put all this stuff together physically, and then also at this digital site kind of electronically. And so this is the place where I would go if I had any questions at all about money, classes, scholarships, right? All of that. Even including things like if you have a crappy landlord and you need help, there's legal support at UT to help you with that, right? There are lawyers employed by the university, and their job is to help students who get stuck in bad lease agreements, right? So if you have trouble, again, don't suffer in silence, right? Ask for help. And the One Stop is a good place to start. So is my email again, right? Because I won't have all the answers, but somebody on campus will. So you connect to me and we'll figure it out, right? Okay, enough about that. I'm going to do the 5-second Zoom best practice pause to see if there are any questions or comments, and then we'll move into professional development. Great. Again, feel comfortable. Put them in the chat. Just unmute yourself and say, hey, stop talking for a minute so that I can ask a question. I would love that. Let me talk about my job a little bit. So in the Longhorn Center for Academic Equity, there are lots and lots of programs that have to do with student leadership, that have to do with study abroad, that have to do with yeah, AJ, that's a great question. I'll pause and say, yes, you can. That thing should be open to you. Now, if some of it may want you to log in, and if you don't have that EID, you may not be able to access everything quite yet, but it's definitely the place to go that if you have questions now about applications, about things like if you need to get immunization shots, if you need to, like all that kind of stuff that they need you to do to prepare to go to campus, definitely the One Stop's the place to go to. Great question, AJ. That's great. So we have all this stuff in LCAE, and my corner of it is, again, that kind of the end of a long pathway that starts with when you were, right, young students in kindergarten, elementary school, middle school, high school, right, into college, and then what do I do after I get that degree in my hand, right? And so that's kind of my responsibility. And we have kind of two things that we're doing in our center, and then I'll point out some other stuff that's going on across campus that might be a good resource for you as well. The first thing we're doing in our center is to sort of broadly conceive college to career portfolio. So basically it's a series of programs that help students really dive deep early in their academic careers to start thinking about, what do I want to do, right? So for instance, we have a program called Explore Law. And the idea here is that maybe you get through your first year of college, you kind of get your sea legs, you understand, like by the time you get to the end of your first year, you're kind of a professional college student. You understand what's going on. And so you're ready to really start thinking about, okay, in 3 years, is law school a good option for me? What does a law school look like? What does it mean to be a law school student? How would I even do that in an effective and efficient way? right? So we have a program called Explore Law that's designed to help students really dive deep early in their academic careers, right, as undergraduates, to take a look at what does it mean to be a law student? What does it mean to be a lawyer, right? How do I use that law degree, right, in ways that I hadn't even considered, right? Not just being a trial lawyer, but all kinds of other ways that you might use that law degree. What does it take to get a law degree? How do I best set myself up to be competitive when I enter that application process? Right, so that's what Explore Law does. We're building out a similar program, Explore Health, with the Dell Medical Center. And we have one called Explore Business that is a partnership with the University Co-op, who you will get to know very well. They're the ones who sell you your textbooks. They're the ones who sell you all your UT swag. But what they do as a nonprofit corporation is fund student scholarships, student experiences. And one of the experiences they fund is this 2.5-year internship where students are paid to do basically managerial level work at the co-op. So you go through a course with us where you kind of learn the ins and outs of all the different departments in the co-op, how that ecosystem works together, how corporations communicate, make decisions, build plans, deal with money. And then over the next 2 years, you get paid to work at the co-op and to do hands-on stuff that once you put that on a resume and are able to talk about that in job interviews, makes you highly competitive when you go out on the job market. So that's an example of kind of what that college and career portfolio looks like. Explore Law, Explore Health, Explore Business. But if you come to us and you have a goal that doesn't neatly fit into one of those 3 programs, we'll help you build it, or we'll help you figure out how to put something together, right? So we have lots of students who are interested in various kinds of entrepreneurial activities, and we have a whole office that helps those students, and we can also help you as well. The other thing that I'll talk about very quickly that deals with preparing for professional life is the McNair Scholars program. And I co-direct this program. McNair Scholars, you may have heard of the federally funded TRIO program. So there are 7 programs out of the Department of Education: Talent Search, Upward Bound, right? These programs. So again, that's a pathway of service. And at the end of that pathway is McNair. And it's designed to get students who are underrepresented in PhDs, PhD programs, PhD holders, PhD professions, to get those students into PhDs. So it's largely first generation. It's largely students below certain socioeconomic levels, so income, right, as defined by the federal government, or students from communities who are underrepresented, students of color generally, who are underrepresented in various disciplines. So McNair Scholars really is a program that basically teaches you how to do graduate level research, right? Because getting a PhD or getting a master's is essentially an exercise in being able to do research for a long period of time, right? And so there are a lot of keys to success to graduate school life, but the big one is being able to conduct research. And so McNair is a research program that helps students figure out, what does it mean to do graduate level research? How do I come up with an idea? How do I build a research project around that idea? How do I go out and conduct that research? How do I turn that research into some sort of communication that helps build knowledge in this discipline that I'm interested to be part of, right? And so we have you do all of that over about 1.5 to 2 years. And again, you take that research, you take those experiences, we have you go out and present at professional conferences. We connect you with admissions counselors and deans and former graduate students and former McNair alumni. So you're a much more competitive candidate when you go into that application field, right? So again, it's a lot of things you can do. It's a lot of things you can do on your own, because you're all smart, you're all accomplished, right? You've made this successful journey. And so there's no reason to believe you couldn't just continue to make that successful journey, but there's no reason to do it by yourself, I guess, right? Efficient and effective. That's what we want. We want you to be successful in an efficient and an effective way. So we're not there to do anything you can't do yourself. We just try to make things easier, more robust, right? We try to add value to an already valuable experience. So that's kind of what I'll say about professional development. Let me go ahead and put our website up if you're interested to learn more about some of these programs. I'll also point out very quickly that as an undergraduate, You'll probably have some connection with the undergraduate studies office. So if you'll need to take a signature course, those signature courses are generally run out of one of the core courses every student at UT needs to take. That signature course is run out of UGS, undergraduate studies. Undergraduate studies has a very helpful center that does academic support. It does career support, early career support. It's called the Vic Center. Right. This is, and now I'm not even proselytizing for LCAE. I'm just talking about our friends across campus, just to prove that there's kind of a deep bench of support there. So you might think about looking at the Vic Center. Similarly, you probably should note that every college and school at the University of Texas on campus has its own probably in-house career service center, right? Or at least somebody who's there to help students think about, what do I do with this major? What do I do with this degree, right? So liberal arts has a career service center, college and natural science has a career service center, fine arts has a career service center. I think there's something like 18 career service centers. I would get connected with that career service center when you get to campus, because they're going to have hyper granular support. So if you are a dedicated ballet dancer, they're going to help you figure out, how do I become a professional ballet dancer, right? If you are a particle physicist at heart, then the engineering school, the Cockrell School of Engineering, they have a career service center that's going to help you figure out, how do I become a particle engineer? So in addition to LCAE, in addition to the Vic Center, you also want to get into the career engagement centers in your college or school, right? This year, they took all those career centers and sort of stitched them together a little bit and ended up with what's called the Career Engagement Center. And I just put that link there as well. And this is basically kind of a one-stop shop for career engagement at UT as well. And they also have some affinity groups. So there's somebody at the Career Engagement Center that works with just first generation students. There's some that works with just African-American students or Latinx students. There's somebody who works with just graduate students or students interested in graduate school. Those are both good as well. Okay, I'm going to pause and see if there are questions. I saw one question about the FAN and activating your scholarship. It looks like, yeah, the answer there is right. That's definitely a one-stop question. Yeah. And Gabby put in the one-stop email, onestop@utexas.edu. If you just can't find it on their website, never be shy. onestop@utexas.edu to get your questions answered. But the FAN question is a great one for the one stop. Okay, questions. What didn't I cover that you'd like to hear about, either UT specific or transitioning into or out of college? Oh no, Evelyn, why were you panicked? Do you mind telling us why you were panicked?
I was scared. I was like, I'm not gonna be able to add my scholarships, but then I was like, I'm just gonna email them. Yeah,
never panic. Usually there's an answer, right? And so the trick is again, not suffering in silence. Never feel bad about just emailing wildly and saying, can you help me answer the question, right? But the one stop is probably the most efficient and effective way to get your questions answered.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And any other questions or comments? Anything else we should talk about?
Dr. Dieter, I have a question.
Sure, Tyrone.
I believe you said that you are a first generation college graduate in your family.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you be able to share your story just a little bit, your journey being a first generation student and now you're a bona fide doctor? Can you talk a little bit about that journey?
Sure. It's still, I've had the degree for a while now. It still feels weird to hear that. I gotta say, yeah. Yeah, so I'm from Indiana. I'm a Midwesterner. We've been in Texas and Austin for about 20 years now, but I'm from Indiana. And, you know, I had a family where there was no question that my sister and I were going to go to college, but my parents hadn't gone to college. And there was a limited amount of advice they could give us when it came time to picking a college. And you know, fortunately, I probably did what you all did, which is I looked at a lot of colleges. I casted a pretty wide net, and then I kind of went with my gut. Some of it had to do with the money they offered me. Some of it had to do with just kind of how nice everybody seemed to me when I was communicating with them. But it turned out to be a great choice. I went to a small liberal arts college, Wabash College in Indiana. And then I didn't really know what I was going to do after I graduated, but I liked doing research. And I liked my professors, and I liked watching my professors work. And so I sort of thought maybe that could be something I could do. But Wabash, even though, I mean, Wabash is known for being a school that really tries to help students maximize their ambition, right? A lot of people who go to Wabash end up being CEOs and things like that. But there wasn't a McNair program or any sort of like preparatory program. So it was just kind of like, maybe you had a professor you could show a statement of purpose to. And I kind of just felt my way around it. And I got into a graduate school. I got into UT. So we moved down here for graduate school. And then I went through that program and got my degree. And I'm guessing I'm like you, right? I'm guessing everybody in here, we're all smart and we're all ambitious, right? And we're all dedicated and we all advocate it for ourselves. And so you make it happen. So I got through undergrad and I did pretty well, and I got the PhD. It took me probably a little longer than it would have because I wasn't very efficient. So it was right. It has nothing to do with aspiration. It has nothing to do with ambition. It has nothing to do with intelligence or intellect, right? Because you can just kind of, if you're like me, you can ramrod your way through. I'm a smart guy. I'm going to make it happen, right? And you all are like that too, I'm sure. But it would have been helpful to know that I could have gotten some support to make things more efficient, right? That maybe I wouldn't have had to make so many missteps and all that. But you know what? You make those missteps, you learn, and you get where you're at, and it all works out for you. So, I mean, my other piece of advice: don't suffer in silence. The other one is don't overestimate the consequences of making a mistake. You're gonna make mistakes, right? You're gonna take a class that's maybe not the class you wanted or needed, or you get into it and you're like, holy crap, this thing is much harder and more complicated than I thought. Or you're gonna, get an internship and you realize this thing's wasting my time. Maybe not, right? And hopefully not. But if you're a human like all other humans, you're probably gonna make a mistake. And don't overestimate the consequences. You may bomb your first essay, right? You get it back and you just get tons and tons of feedback, right? And that will maybe feel like a mistake. It's not. It's you learning, right? You may bomb that first test or quiz, and even though you studied your best, that may feel like a mistake. It's not. That's what learning looks like, right? You figure out, what did I do well? What did I do less well? How do I make changes? You're basically kind of become your own experiment, right? When do I study best? If you're not a morning person, don't take 8 a.m. classes. So there are certain things you can do to help make yourself successful, right? If you're a night owl, kind of embrace it. College is the one time you can kind of embrace studying at 3 a.m. I mean, that's how I am. I still would prefer to work overnight, but everybody else wants to get me in the morning. So you can do that in college, right? And there are, again, supports on campus that will help you figure out, how do I study the best? How do I read most efficiently with the best kind of comprehension, right? There's a place called the Sanger Learning Center. There's the Undergraduate Writing Center. These places can help you do this experiment called you as a student and figuring out how to do it best, right? And again, I think having knowing that support's there, I think that helps you not overestimate the consequences of making a mistake. But if you make a mistake, then you just learn from it and you move forward, right? But it's a great question, Tyrone. And I think the short answer is we did it because, just like all of y'all, I was a pretty sharp guy, but it probably would have been more effective to kind of know that these supports existed or had they existed, right? Yeah, thanks for asking though. Okay, AJ, I'm going to take a look at your question here. Are there any programs that help specifically with internships? Yeah, yes. So the answer is yes. I mean, their campus is full of career service days. It's full of people from various industries, right? Big, small, medium, right? They all come to campus. So basically where you're entering, it would be the same if you were going to A&M, right? Or any kind of tier 1 research university. You're at like a Costco for brains, right? You're one of the 55-gallon brains that every employer in this state and this nation and in this world, they want to hire. So they will show up where you're at to try to hire you. So yes, there are tons of days on campus where there are recruiters, where there are career fairs, where there are, right? And part of it is just keeping your eyes open on like the UT calendar. You get a lot of emails, so you kind of have to train yourself to say like, I need to look at that calendar to see if there's something there for me, right? Or get in the habit of saying, I'm interested in engineering, so once a week, I'm just going to go to the calendar and at least keyword search the calendar to see if there's anything that's going to be applicable to me. So yes, lots of that stuff, AJ, and lots of internships. Internships have become almost, I don't want to say they're almost, not everybody does them, but the number of students who don't do them is probably smaller and smaller every year, right? Internships were not particularly popular when I was a college student, or at least, again, I didn't know about them. But now I think it would be hard pressed for a student not to get some sort of internship in their 4 years at college. Some of those are on campus. Most of them are going to be connected to campus because, again, people are coming to the Costco of brains and they want those sharp, ambitious students like you to come and get a taste of what it's like to work for them. And Austin's is unique in that it is got a lot of overlapping stuff. So it is the state government of the second largest economy in the country, right? It is kind of the boom town for the new tech, right? So every social media company, every big tech company you can think of, they have a headquarters here in Austin. And then Austin is also a hub for a lot of consumer goods, right? Names that you probably know, big vodka companies, big grocery store companies, right? Big companies that sell mugs that you can't destroy even if you run over them with your car, right? All of these companies are here in Austin. So you have state government, right? You have tech, and then you have the campus and all the research that's going on. So there is a lot of internship opportunities. That's a really long answer to your question, AJ, but hopefully that helped.
I just wanted to add something, when I'm hearing you mention all these things, the kids that are on the call, the students that joined us today, and even us as professionals, we need to learn to take that initiative more so. Like you said, that once a week in the calendar, it's time management, right? But if you're going to reach out to folks like yourself, Dr. Dieter, and other programs around campus, what we're trying to impress upon these students is that these programs are there for them, right? Yeah. It's them, it's for them, it's for the taking, right? Yeah. And so to get used to taking that initiative, to get used to, knocking on that door, exploring, or I would even dare say, if they don't know where to go, they can email you and we can probably set them, in a more positive direction. Now, and then I like what you said about making mistakes. Everybody's going to make mistakes. However, you don't want to make a mistake blindly, right? And so you want to take risk, but you want to take a calculated risk. And the way you take a more calculated risk is by having these discussions with folks like yourself and others at One Stop and all different areas across campus, which is why I thought it was important to have you on today so that these students understand, wow, okay, there are some crazy folks like this guy who's looking out for me when I go to UT, right? And so just because you're miles and miles away doesn't mean it'll take a while to get used to and comfortable, right? But they won't know that if they're in silent or if they don't reach out and if they don't explore. So thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I think part of not overestimating the consequences of making a mistake is just to redefine what counts as a mistake, right? Again, I think one bad grade, right, or even if you stumble one semester, these are not mistakes. They're not great, but you can come back from them, right? You're not going to end up sleeping on a mattress just because you got in an alley because you got one F. It's not going to happen, right? But you're right, Steve. You want to do things to try to prevent things from happening. You want to try to be proactive, right? And so that's where that not suffering in silence comes in, right? Where you want to ask for help. You don't want to wait till things get right. You don't want to wait till you're in the hole, right? Once you see the hole coming up on you, start asking for help. Okay. And so there are certain things you can do, but you're absolutely right. This is, again, you're never alone. That's a myth, right? You're not on your own in college, but this question of initiative is probably a fair point, right? So I would, for instance, and again, this is just advice, your mileage may vary, but this is advice I wish somebody had told me when I was 18, 19, right? Every class you go to, start a study group, right? Because those 20, 30, 40, 50 people around you, you know where they're going to be 3 times a week for an hour, right? So there's sort of a captive audience of just potential friends and potential colleagues. And so, you know, and now I don't know, I teach rhetoric classes every semester. I think the first thing that happens after our first day in the class is somebody sets up a group meet. I think it just happens almost automatically now. I don't set it up, but somebody else does. They all get connected and they start forming study groups, right? And I don't even have a class you particularly need to study for. It's all writing, but they still do it. So you can do things like that, right? And then once you start doing it, it just becomes a habit. And so it's not even any effort to like turn around and start making friends when you go to class and start making study groups or getting on that group and saying, hey, who wants to start a study group, right? And we're not going to wait to get together until there's the exam. We're going to start meeting now, so we're comfortable with each other. So when the exam shows up, we're going to really hit the ground running. So yeah, initiative, that's a big one. But exploring is part of the initiative. And that first year of college, my advice is to be a yes machine. So when you'll be walking, hopefully we'll be back in the fall, you'll be walking around and you'll see tables and tables and tables full of students just like you, maybe 1 year, 2 year older, who are saying, hey, do you want to learn about organization? Do you want to learn about this major, right? Do you want to join this organization? Always say yes, at least that first semester. Eventually you'll have to start saying no, because your classes will get a little bit more intense. You'll have to start thinking about things like, if you're going to go to law school, you need to take the LSAT. If you want to go to med school, you have to take the GMAT, right? So other things. So you have to learn how to say no, but you don't have to learn how to say no your first semester. I think that first semester, maybe that first year, you're a yes machine, and you're just absorbing as much information about all the opportunities around you and all the organizations and all the communities that you can find. And so people like me who study how students like you are maximally successful in college, we looked at the indicators of college success, and you would think it would be things like GPA. And of course, depending on how you define college success, GPA does track with college success. But if we're just talking about graduating with a degree that you feel comfortable with and saying that that was a valuable use of my time the last 4 years, it turns out the number one indicator of success is joining an organization, being part of a community. That's number one. And it turns out it doesn't really matter what community you join. It could be a religious affiliation. It could be an ethnic affiliation group. It could be the Quidditch team. Turns out it doesn't really matter, so long as you're part of a community that you know these are people who are like me and I'm comfortable around them and I feel safe and I feel valued and I feel heard and I feel like I have a beachhead on this campus where I can make it my own, right? But it takes some initiative to figure out where's that community at. Right, UT loves to say, you probably heard this or saw it in the brochure, that they have something like 1,200 student organizations, right? That's a lot. So you'll have to kind of be a yes machine at first and say like, hey, do you want to learn about our organization? Yeah, absolutely, right? I mean, unless you just know you hate chess, why not take 5 minutes to learn about the chess organization? You don't know, right? I mean, you have this unique opportunity in life to, I don't want to say reinvent yourself because you keep being the same person you were the day before, but to really expand, you know, and that's kind of a glorious gift, I think, right? It's one of the things that makes college really special, is you really get a chance to do that. So take advantage of that to the best of your ability. Yeah, comfort zone is that's exactly right. Yeah, don't be afraid to get outside that comfort zone. I think we have maybe 5 more minutes or so. If anybody else has got questions, comments, anything else you want to talk about. We're all good. Maybe just in the chat, maybe y'all can just put kind of the one thing you are kind of looking forward to the most about going to college. Just as a quick straw poll from my curiosity, if you don't mind sharing. What are you looking forward to about college? Breaking walls. Evelyn, that's an extremely poetic way of putting, you basically said it better than I did over the last 30 minutes. So thank you. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. What else we got? What else are you looking forward to? I mean, all kinds of, being away from home, right? Making new friends, right? Diving deep and learning about German expressionism, right? Learning particle physics, whatever it is, what is that's got you excited about doing what it is you're about ready to do? Endless opportunities, new connections. Yep. Yeah. Figuring out how to navigate on my own in the real world. Yeah. Research opportunities, gaining new perspectives. Yeah. I mean, obviously there's no wrong answer here, but all these answers are fantastic for sure. And I think if you go in saying, yeah, this experience is ultimately, but not exclusively, about me getting a job, right? You want to get a job on the back end of it. I don't want to minimize that. And again, I spend most of all day, every day in my professional life, helping students figure out what their job's going to be and make sure that they get one that's going to pay their bills and make them satisfied and all of that, right? But going to college is not just exclusively about finding that job and preparing for that job. It's about all these other things that you're talking about too. So I'm glad that you're putting all that in as part of that new perspective. I'm glad you're putting all that, right? It's fun. It's fun to think your thoughts, right? It's fun to learn new things. It's fun to be part of these conversations, right? You're watching knowledge get built around you, and then you get to be part of that, right? You get to be part of, so you're in this lab and you're doing something that's never been done, but you're observing something that's never been observed before, right? Or you're in a writing class and you're thinking a thought that's never been thought exactly that way before, right? That, it should feel a little challenging. It should feel a little scary, right? But like Evelyn says, it's a wall that you break down and you get through, and that's education, right? Education, that's what education is. It seems like the thing you can't do until you do it, right? So it's working when it feels just out of your reach, and then you work and then it's in your reach, and then the next thing's just out of your reach. So these are all great answers. I will turn it over to whoever needs to go first, but I'll stick around. If anybody's got questions that they want to ask at the end, we're happy to do it. Otherwise, if you want to wrap up a little early, Steve, we can definitely do that, because I don't want to talk all day.
Thank you, Dr. Dieter. We do have Gabriela with admissions. If Gabby, if you'd like to share your screen or move it to the next.
Yeah, if you can just move it to the next slide.
Okay.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Dieter, for that. I really think, just kind of reflecting, even on my own experiences, just graduating college a couple years ago. I mean, I think it's great to know that these students have so much support from, faculty on campus. So thank you so much for taking the time to just tell your story. I really appreciate it. All right, everyone. So my name is Gabby Kavangan. I'm an admissions counselor. I work out of the Valley Admissions Center. And so I'm just here to kind of go over some next steps. So for those of you who haven't already, and you know that you want to go to UT, go ahead and accept your offer. Go to your My Status portal, accept your offer, and satisfy your enrollment deposit. It is $300. But for those of you whose financial aid, for those of you whose admissions application waiver fee was waived, your enrollment deposit fee is waived. If you haven't already done so, apply for housing. So really, the things that you see on after accepting your offer cannot really happen until after you accept your offer. So accepting your offer to UT really is a catalyst for kind of getting everything else on the ball rolling for your next steps. So if you haven't already done so, apply for housing. Once you accept your offer, then you're eligible to receive a housing contract. Now, housing contracts have been released. They've started being released this past month. They are typically released on either the 1st or the 15th of the month. And so once you receive your housing contract, you have 10 days to submit your housing contract, pay your housing prepayment. Again, if your fee waiver was waived, your admissions fee waiver is waived, your housing prepayment is going to be deferred. So you have 10 days. If you miss the deadline, no worries, just email housing so they can send you a new housing contract. But that's where you're going to be able to kind of put your building preferences, your roommate preferences, and then sometime in June, you'll have the opportunity to pick a time to officially pick your room. So that's pretty exciting. And then after housing, make sure that you've already completed your FAFSA and accepted your financial aid awards. Financial aid award notifications have started to disperse this past week. So we have some upcoming financial aid nights coming up. So if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to always contact your admissions counselor, or you can always contact Texas One Stop as well. And then registration for orientation will open starting on April 1st. So know that, again, to register for orientation, you'll need to accept your offer and satisfy your enrollment deposit. And then, of course, just always check your My Status for any updates, whether it be about your admissions application, anything with your financial aid on your cash page, anything with your housing contract. It's all going to be on your My Status portal. So you just want to go next slide. Just again, on the timeline as far as due dates. Again, you have until May 1st to accept your admissions offer and satisfy your enrollment deposit. We totally understand if you are still kind of weighing your options. A lot of students are, that's okay. But if you definitely know that you use your school, then go ahead and accept your admissions office. But again, you have until May 1st, and we are a non-binding school, so just keep that in mind, okay? So, and then just upcoming, next slide, as far as these sessions, the DDCE sessions, we have upcoming ones as well. So if you kind of want to learn more about our programs on campus, just be on the lookout for these and on our registrations. Or every session is going to be at 4:30 like this one, just on different days. So just be on the lookout for that. But thank you all so much. Again, if you have any questions, I see one in the chat. Let me just address it real quick. Yeah, for housing, yes, you can connect with groups. So you can definitely use the housing tool that's on like the housing contract, kind of like their like eHarmony style kind of roommate matching thing. And so you just fill out a profile, and then you can also, you know, once they kind of get enough profiles, they'll match you with some potential roommates, and then it's up to you to message them and to see kind of who you'd like to room with. But you can also look on your Facebook page, your UT25 group as well, to see if you connect with anybody and would potentially like to room with someone. All right, but that's all I have. Again, thank you all so much. If you have any questions, let us know, but I'll go ahead and throw it over to Steve or Myra, but thank you all so much.
Thank you, Gabby. That was very informative. So thank you, students, for joining us. Thank you all for joining us. The next session will be Thursday, April 1st at 4:30 p.m. with Dr. Thais Bass Moore with the Fearless Leadership Institute, which focuses on the advancement of African American and Latino women through academic excellence, professional development, and personal growth. Um, and I believe, yes, that was placed in the chat box. So you open that and you log in and share it with anybody else who's going to come as well, because the more the merrier. So if you have any questions, please contact us to our centers, and feel free to reach us to our emails that are on screen now. And thank you all for joining us, and have a good evening.
Before we depart, can we get everybody, honestly, to really show themselves so that we can take a picture? This is, hey, if your hair's not combed, that's okay. Don't worry. All right. The students are scrambling. You know, oh my God, I didn't think he was going to be serious with that. So if you guys can turn off your camera, we'd like to take a picture. We'll post it on our social media. Hey, there's Evelyn. All right, thank you. And then there we go. All right. Yes, we actually said we were going to do this. I appreciate that. Dr. Dieter, thank you again for being here with us and
My
sharing your
pleasure.
story, your
My pleasure.
knowledge. We'll wait for, come on, Brisa, AJ, Daniel. Deanna's at the beach. All right. So what we'll do is I'll take a screenshot. We can put up our hook'em here, and then we'll go from there. Okay. So let me get ready here. And if we want, we can just do a hook'em real quick. Show your pearly whites on 3. Where's AJ? AJ, you gonna join us? All right. Okay. All right. Here we go. Are we ready? On 3. 1, 2, 3. All right. Great. Okay. I think I got it. Let me just make sure. Yes, I got it. Okay, great. Awesome. And these are programs for you guys, every school is going to have these programs for you. So you need to venture out. You need to really explore, and put it best, we are all, college grads, and we all have our different stories. And I can honestly say as well, I knew more about where to go just to kind of get, that confidence, that extra push. And so there's always somebody like ourselves, like Dr. Dieter, waiting for you guys to reach out. So Really appreciate your time. Sign up for any additional sessions. And I know there was a couple of you on today that were with us on Tuesday. And so, Dr. Walker spoke on Tuesday. He works with Dr. Dieter as well. So we all work together. So without further ado, Myra, any last thoughts or comments?
No, that's it. Students, please share the link as well for any student who is probably forgot or something, just so we can have more students. Thank you all.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Yes. Thank you guys. Have a great evening. Good to see you
Thank
guys.
you.
Bye-bye.